Okay, so I guess the first thing, just to mention, especially Chris was on the last lab developer workshop. Obviously, our push to production got delayed a little bit. Obviously, we talked about push to production for features like Lab Advisor being released, and it did actually slip past the date that I mentioned on the call. So first of all, let me apologise for that. Sometimes these things happen, and with some of the things that we was doing with respect to Lab Advisor, they just took a little bit longer than we ultimately planned on. And that did mean, there's a couple of features that we was hoping to have in version 1 that didn't make it to version 1, but obviously they will be along shortly. So for Skillable Studio, next release is the 1st of September. So again, you think about, I always used to say last Thursday of the month. And technically this would be the last Thursday of the month. So this is just being pushed a week more, just because we actually only had a release a couple of weeks ago, just to give us a bit more time to get a bit more content in. So what are we looking for Skillable Studio updates? So ultimately, we are hoping that it's going to actually have our first implementation of Google Cloud as a native cloud fabric. Now, this won't actually be something that you can see and have access to in September. We're doing a bit of eat your own dog food to start with. So effectively, we're planning to release some of our challenge labs. We've got some big customers that use our challenge labs. And really the idea is they're going to sort of give them a good going over, making sure that our cloud, Google Cloud platform is pretty robust before we let customers start to use it. So, obviously from our point of view, does it really tear down properly? That's maybe the most thing we're concerned about, just purely from the point of view of making sure we can minimize any costs customers might incur and so on. There will be another set of rules released for Lab Advisor. So hopefully you've had a little look at Lab Advisor. We'll just have a quick look in a second. But there will be another sort of 7 to 10 rules. So that would get us to somewhere around 17 to 19 rules. We do have a catalogue of over 70 rules that we want Lab Advisor to work with, and we're going to sort of be adding them incrementally as we go along. But of course, we always want would really like feedback from customers in terms of what rules they would like to see in place and so on. The other thing, which is quite critical to us, it's actually one of those things that sort of come out the woodwork a little bit, is we're going to be releasing some significant improvements around the way our scored labs work, especially with VMs. And this is really to improve the reliability of the scoring process. We've got some edge cases, and in these edge case scenarios, the scoring process breaks down a little bit. So let me give you an example of what we see as an edge case scenario. So let's say, for example, you've got a lab. That lab contains a virtual machine, and that virtual machine does not have an operating system in it. So lab profile with one VM, the VM does not have an operating system in it. Okay, so the objective is the user actually installs the operating system, completes the lab, does a few other bits and pieces, and then you're going to do some scoring against it. Okay, so we put a lot of robustness and retry logic into our scoring for things like high stakes exams. But in these edge case scenarios, we noticed that we was getting stuck in a retry loop because our retry logic wasn't timing out fast enough before the system started the next retry. And we ended up getting into this bit of a mess, and we kept extending the lab. Okay, so one of the things we wasn't very good at was doing pre-flight checks to make sure that the environment was appropriate for trying to score. So was the VM powered on? Was it responding? Those sorts of things. So there's a whole new load of pre-flight check type activities going in, which are really going to improve the way we score and the efficiency that we score on our platform, and not get stuck in some of these loops that we got stuck in before. Okay, so so there's some key customers that have got this as a challenge, so it's going to really make life a lot better for them. And if you've been in these scenarios, then it's going to improve those scenarios for yourself as well. There is also going to be a bug fix for Azure Based VM. So actually, we're talking about Azure Based VM. So normally I don't talk too much about bug fixes and security fixes, but there is going to be an update in the 1st of September release, which is directly related to what we're talking about here. So I will actually discuss that as we get closer to the content. Okay. So hopefully they'll all get released pretty soon. And hopefully you've all been into our platform over the last few days, and you have seen we've got the new dashboard out there, and managed to deploy the dashboard. So ultimately, first and foremost, we hope you like what's the start of our new look and feel. Okay, so you will notice there are a couple of issues with it in terms of, for example, if I go back to something like the admin page, which sort of redirects us to the old environment, things like fonts change a little bit and things. Okay, we're fully aware of this because it's actually two different environments, and we're actually basically going to start migrating the back end of the old system across into this new environment, and it will start getting this new interface. Most of the features and functions from the dashboard before are all exactly the same. So again, you can create from here. You've got search, you've got your favorites with a little sort of heart. You can obviously remove those. You can go straight into edit profiles from here. Plus you've got your active, and you've got your VM sort of history. So the sort of stuff that you've been running with. Again, you can drop straight into viewing the instance, going straight to the lab profile, whatever you might want to do. For those that are eagle-eyed, you might notice that, from screenshots that we were sharing back in May for the people that attended launch, and some that I've shared since then, there are a couple of icons missing off of here. So features and functions that we want to add in, they just didn't make it into this version, but they'll be there sort of pretty soon. Okay, so it is constantly being improved. The other thing, which this becomes the default place that you'd interact with it, is the lab advisor. Okay, so in the lab developer workshop org, we've got one lab here where effectively I could sort of go and view the recommendations and potentially improve any things that I would like to actually go and sort of improve within my environment. If I just actually go to another, just going to go and open up another window, okay, and just go log in with a different account. I'll close this window down. I was tidying up before we started, and I got a bit carried away with the windows that I closed down. Did I not do an incognito? Obviously not. Let me just try that again. Incognito. And so just one thing. So this is just an environment with just a few more sort of lab profiles in there and so on. So you can just see a little bit more data. Just get signed in. Hopefully that's the correct information. So you can see here got 10 recommendations. Obviously the little balloon will effectively tell you how many labs have got the highest severity. Okay, so critical is obviously the highest severity. If I hit the view recommendations, this will then drag you into the lab advisor, and this will then show you the different categories. Okay, so these are effectively this column here is the rules. So we have 9 rules today. So you can have a maximum of 9 rows in here, and then depending on actually how many rules we get released in on the 1st of September, potentially you can have up to 19 if we get all 10 published in here. Okay. You've then got obviously how many labs themselves. So this is how many lab profiles effectively are affected by these particular options. So in here, if you then click on the entry, this will then actually take you straight away to the lab profile. So you can see the particular lab profiles. You can then, of course, drill into the lab profile. You could choose to sort of turn this notification off for the individual lab profile, or the notification off completely on the previous page. When you go into here, this will actually give you some guidance about what we think you need to do to resolve the problem. So effectively, you can see here, set the lifecycle action failure to end lab. So effectively, if we were just to go and have a look at one of these, so let's just go and have a look at this lab profile here. Okay, if we was to go and edit the profile, go to the lifecycle action. Okay, if I just go and edit this entry here, you can actually see the error action is log. Okay, and our recommendation is end lab. Okay, and the reason for that it is generally, again, if you're doing stuff in lifecycle actions, and those lifecycle actions, if they don't execute correctly, mean the lab's not going to be functional for the user somehow, something's not going to work correctly, then it's more than likely better to cancel the lab and get the user to relaunch it, rather than them work within a broken environment, which then might impact them later on. Okay, same sort of thing as we've been talking about, for example, with Cloud Labs as an example. Okay, so that's hopefully the new Lab Advisor. Hopefully you've seen it and you've had a little play with it. We've got some figures released recently in terms of actually a lot of people have been going in now, and certainly for some of the simpler rules, been actually making some changes, which is excellent. Okay. Few things that we think is actually quite important to us are actually things like the cost element, for example, making sure that you've got your labs configured for the correct runtime duration and things. Okay, so those sorts of rules are really important to us. This particular rule is not perfect at the moment because of just the way some of the calculations. We've actually found some better ways to do the calculation, so we're going to improve the efficiency of some of the existing rules as well, and the cost one's a prime example of how we're going to improve that. So hopefully you've seen it, you've played it a little bit. The one thing I'd like to call out, really important, is the little beta tag. I think I did this on the last Lab Developer Workshop. Please hover over here, give it a rating, and give us some feedback. We'd love some feedback in terms of, what you like, what you don't like, what would you like to see? It's really critical for us that, we can make this as good as we can for all of our customers that develop labs on our platform. So what would you like to see in here in terms of sort of other features and capabilities, and especially rules, Just out of curiosity, has anyone been doing much with it? Get a thumbs up or something. Got any comments on Lab Advisor? They find it frustrating. Is it working for them? Is it a good start, bad start? Cool, thanks, Chris. Yeah. So, certainly we're seeing customers. I think there's some interesting statistics in terms of, see if I can just find the screenshot that was shared from our team. No, can't find it very quickly. Okay, I was going to try and be a bit more efficient about that. Failed abysmally. But I think there's been several hundred labs where people have actually gone in and actually improved their labs just from the basic rule set that we actually have in place. So I think that's a really, really good start in terms of the technology. And if we can get all the rules, or the majority of the rules our customers want in place, I think that's going to then just really make the tool incredibly useful. Okay, so please, your feedback. So effectively, I'm just trying to say, yeah, so I just found the numbers. So currently across our whole platform, it's something like about 30,000 lab profile recommendations we've got. And of course, some lab profiles might have more than one recommendation against them. And so far, effectively, we've had somewhere just over 2,000, nearly 2,500, where users or our customers have actually gone in there and actioned. Okay, so hopefully that's just a good sign